So with that, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our good friend, Frank, from the Belfast Northern Ireland Zen Centre, long in 12-step recovery himself and Zen practice, mindfulness practice, where he combines both 12-step and mindfulness practice. Frank is going to talk about all of that today. And without too much more, Frank's been with us. Many of you know him, and he's very generously offered to come back and do these workshops for us. And we really appreciate it, Frank. So I will turn it over to you. Thank you.
And thank you, Patrick, and welcome everybody. Big thank you to the hosts and the co-hosts and all those who are behind the scene. So my name is Frank, and I normally describe myself as my name is Frank, and I'm a recovering thinker. You know, one thought's too much, and the thoughts is not enough. So what I'd like to talk about this evening is, what brought me to where I am today. I'd like to begin by, a big thank you to AA and to 12 Steps, to Bill W. and to Bob for bringing about, AA, because that's where I got sober. I didn't find myself getting sober within the Zen Center or within the Buddhist community. And actually, it's a well-known fact that lots of great Zen teachers and lots of great Buddhist teachers, died through the disease of alcoholism. So I must put that always out there up front. And that is, I got sober in AA. And really, I discovered mindfulness, which is a core practice of Zen. I discovered that in my search for step 11, sought through prayer and meditation. So I'll give you a quick sort of a bit of a lightning tour of my past. I'm coming up to 30 years sober. I'm 29 years a Zen student. And way back in the early days, I was brought up in an alcoholic home. This is just for a little bit of a picture, a bit of a sort of a thumb pick. I'm not going to be blaming anybody here. Just to let you know, this is the backdrop. So the backdrop is, here I am in Belfast, brought up in an alcoholic home, alcoholic mother. Inside the house, you had to walk on eggshells. And outside of the house, it was almost like walking on landmines, and that's where things were in Belfast back then. I found myself in the early 70s, about 1975, in a bomb in a pub in Belfast. And what happened was myself and a friend went into the pub to say bye-bye to other friends there as we were going to head off to London to live. And my good friend Mark became a bit sort of, claustrophobic, and he says, come on, let's leave the pub. We left the pub, walked around the corner. Honestly, we're only like 2 or 3 minutes away, and boom, bang, up goes the pub. We couldn't believe it. I ran around the corner, and lo and behold, the smoke is billowing out of the doors of the pub. And without thinking twice, I just, ran into the pub and did my best to help those who needed help. And there's a lot of people who needed help. That, I would say was my birth in trauma. Yeah. In an interview I gave one time with a member of the Tavistock Institute, we decided to call that period of my life the Rude Awakening. Yes, the Rude Awakening. Because I really woke up to suffering of what man's inhumanity to man can bring about. That didn't stop me drinking. It didn't add my drinking or didn't take away from my drinking. Yeah. I started drinking at the ripe old age of about 13, and I continued till I was about 39 years of age. My mother, she got sober when I was 15, and we enjoyed a good like 20 odd years of sobriety together. My mother passed away about 3 years ago, and she was a long-term member of AA. She was 51 years sober, and she taught me a lot. She taught me a great lot. So anyway, there we have Belfast, that's the backdrop, the scene, the troubles, although, troubles to put too light a word on it. It was a war. When you have British army on the streets of any country, or any army on the streets of any country, it is a war. It wasn't a peacekeeping force was sent into Belfast. It was an army was sent into Belfast, into the north of Ireland. So it was a war zone. And that's what it was. It was a war zone. So anyway, I thought, right, let's leave this war zone. Left the war zone, went off to live in London for a while. And every time, no matter where I was, alcohol always found its way to sort of take from under me whatever stability that I have, and brought about that sort of instability, And then I left England and I went off to live in Italy for a while. Again, I found myself well settled in Italy, and not too long, matter of a few months of sobriety, and then king alcohol came back into my life, and of course pulled the rug from under my feet. I found myself back in the south of England, and when I was back in the south of England, I ended up in Exeter, begging on the streets, begging for money on the streets, money for anything, money for food and money for alcohol. Probably, to be honest, money for alcohol. I then came back to Belfast, and I had hit many rock bottoms. When I was in south of England in Exeter, begging on the streets, I found myself with this hippie type guy hooking through a bin at the back of the restaurant for food. And I got like a bit of an insight there. Is this is this my life? You know what I mean? Is this what I've become? Having no future whatsoever. Even the thought of a future would be terrifying. So I came back to Belfast. When I was back in Belfast, again, I found myself, on my feet for a short period of time, and then rock bottom one last time. I burnt many bridges along the way. And then I went along to, we have a famous chapel here in the west of Belfast, and it's called the Clonard Monastery. And the monastery holds a novena every year around about June 21st. The novena lasts for 9 days. And I was born in that area. And I really went there on my knees, begging, for a miracle. The priest who I spoke to, his father was alcoholic. And I don't know what it was about that priest. But, his advice to me was, get to an AA meeting and get to an AA meeting right away. And, many's a person before him told me the same thing, get to an AA meeting. Frankie, you've got a problem with drinking. But, we're in that denial. You can't hear till you can hear, and you can't see till you can see. And of course, my great sort of ego too would not allow me to admit to anybody or anyone, that I was an alcoholic. That same day, whatever it was, I took his advice and I headed off to an AA meeting. And I can honestly say, as I sit here now, talking to all you good guys, that was the first time that I felt at home. That was the first time that I felt as with people who understood. That was the first time that I felt safe, secure. Yep. I also got a sponsor, and I did what I was told by you guys in the room. And I also was willing to learn. Prior to that, my ears were closed, because, being the alcoholic of my type, I was a sort of a rigid perfectionist, and in the belief that I knew exactly all that is needed to be known. But anyway, met a great sponsor. He's my sponsor today. And I went through the steps. And when it came to step 11, so through prayer meditation, he told me, he says, I can take you through the steps, he says, but when it comes to this step, he says, you need to find your own path. Yeah. Which is very liberating, to be honest. It wasn't at the time something I really wanted to hear, but I did hear it. And I was very blessed. I came in contact with the abbot of San Francisco Zen Center. And, call it coincidence, call it whatever you want. It just really is what it is, and it's no big deal. But what happened was I was at home and a telephone call came, and it was the abbot of San Francisco Zen Center. And he called about to my house, And he said that he was wanting to set up a retreat, and would I help him set up a retreat? And I said, of course. Him and I and a couple of other people went for a meal that night. And apparently he came across me through a great Theravada teacher. I think his name is Ajahn Chah. Believe it or believe it not, I was known to Ajahn Chah as being the only Buddhist in Ireland, because my good friend Paul Holler, the then abbot of San Francisco Zen Centre, said to Ajahn Chah, did he know of any Buddhists in Ireland? And my name was given. So here I was with this great Zen teacher, this abbot of San Francisco Zen Centre, and I can honestly tell you, it's all about presence. And whenever you're in the presence of someone who has practiced as much as he has practiced, you pick up on his humility, you pick up on his kindness, right? And, the sort of solid, ice cold Frankie began to melt. So much so that the melting of me came through tears. Just being in his presence, brought me to tears. And I asked him if he'd be my teacher. And he said that he would. That was way back about 1996. So it was 1996. So anyway, I'd been sober, a couple of years. And that was at the beginning of the path of Zen Buddhism. His Holiness the Dalai Lama, when he comes to Belfast, and he's been in Belfast now 3 times, I would be his assistant. Belfast, nominated me as one of their chaplains back in the year 2013, 2014, and 2015. And that was the first time, a Zen chaplain, was in Ireland. For those who are aware of Belfast and for those who aren't, we're a strife-torn society. There's a big division, and that's between orange and green, and that's between, say, Protestant, Catholic, nationalist, Republican, loyalists, and so on and so forth. So when you hear about a Zen Buddhist, that's like something else. They just turn and say, let that guy go. Yeah. But anyway, the reason why I wanted to start up a Zen Centre back in Belfast was, Zen is about middle way. It's not about the extreme left or the extreme right, right? It's about somewhere in the center. And that's the way that I was viewing life. I was viewing life, not this extremity or that extremity, neither avoiding or aversion or attachment, but somewhere in between, that sort of equanimity. I must also bring your attention to that, back in 93, whenever I got sober, I also woke up to education. So I got involved back in college and university. And I went, and somehow I became like a duck to water when it came to psychodynamic psychotherapy, and I became a psychotherapist, and I worked with people, and to this day, who are experiencing severe and enduring mental illness. And a lot of those people too would also have a dual diagnosis, incorporating alcoholism as well. So, academically, I'm still in pursuit of knowledge. I just recently qualified from Stanford University. I was awarded a field scholarship, and I work with what's called the neuroscience of mindfulness practice. And really, I took that on board as a bit of a doubting Thomas. You know what I mean? It's like, I know that it works. You know what I mean? Lots of people who I know that it works, but there are some people who want to know how it works. And so they're the ones that, need to sort of where's the hole, the doubting Thomas. You know what I mean? And when it comes to Zen, Zen's all about bringing on the doubt. I mean, what we say in Zen is the greater the doubt, the greater the awakening. Bring on the doubt. The greater the doubt, the greater the awakening. And also what you find in Zen as well, which I believe, we find in the steps, is that humility. They say if you go to a Zen temple and you're looking for the master, the teacher, the abbot, you'll probably find them cleaning the toilets, doing the lowest of the low jobs. And that's where they lead. They sort of lead from behind. They lead from behind. And, I was attracted to that. And it's like the program of AA, and what's, you know, what Bill W says, what Bob says, it's about attraction, you know, it's about attraction. And I was attracted to that. Anyway, I go along to meetings. I still go to meetings. I do at least 3-4 meetings a week. You know, meetings are very, very, very important. And when it comes to Zen, the Zen Centre is now the biggest Zen centre in Ireland. Unfortunately, our previous building, you know, was damaged in a fire, but we've secured new premises, which will open up probably, you know, the end of this month, if not the middle of next month. I must be maybe 3 retreats a year. I also teach at university here at Queen's University in Belfast. Also, I bring along, you know, guest teachers to Belfast to talk about a variety of things, whether it be from a therapeutic background, you know, whether it be psychoanalytical. Also, then there would be, I bring along people regarding the sort of the neuroscience. Later on this year, we're hoping to run it's a conference where we're going to be bringing 400 neuroscientists from around the world to descend off Belfast, because this year, just to let you know, this year we celebrate 25 years of the Good Friday Agreement. You know, 25 years we haven't had, you know, we've had a peace agreement. You know, it's been a bit shaky now and again, but, you know, that's what it is. It's just a wee bit bumpy on the road, that's all. Nothing more than a bit bumpy on the road. We're getting there, you know what I mean? You know, when you look around the globe and you see the template that we have, you know, it does work. It may not appear that way, you know, but it's like a blank canvas, a new canvas. This has never happened before. So anyway, you know, so we bring lots of different speakers from around the world, you know, to Belfast, you know, a bit like what you guys do by bringing speakers, you know, under the Berlin Circle. You know, I would do the same about bringing people into Belfast and to look at, you know, looking at the human condition from different perspectives. So tonight, what I'd like to do, I'd like to let you know all that I know, and that's what I'm here for. You know, like in the 12 steps, I say, you know, in order to keep it, you got to give it away, you know. And what I love about, you know, about the 12 steps, what I love about Zen practice is, you know, I know it is a truth. You know what I mean? You know, like, you know, we know that the fire is hot, but they haven't put our hand in it. You know, the good old fire lets us know with the amount of heat that it sort of emits, you know, that this is a danger zone, right? So we sort of know these things, right? And when it comes to the alcoholic of my type, you know, I really have to test things. I'm glad to say that the Buddha himself, who some people say was the first person in recovery, right? So what the Buddha himself says, he told those who he spoke to, he says, treat me as a piece of gold, give it a good bite, and make sure that it's a real McCoy. And I say the same to you, you know, treat me like a piece of gold, good bite, to make sure, you know, the real McCoy. Because you know, and I know too, you know, whether it be in the rooms, whether it be outside the rooms, you know, we do have people who come in and out of the rooms, you know what I mean? We do have people who've been in AA many, many years. But as Patrick told me one day, they may be in AA a lot of years, but they're not enough days. You know what I mean? Whenever I say that I'm a student of Zen, I'm always learning. I'm also a student of the 12 steps. There's no doubt in my mind. You know, every day to me is a school day. Every day for me is a learning day. And there's no doubt in my mind again about that. So what happened whenever I went and I seen, you know, Paul Haller, the abbot of San Francisco Zen Center? I took off to do a retreat in San Francisco, and it was quite challenging, I must admit. You know, it wasn't like, you know, all you know, smells and bells and, you know, so chilled out. I remember one day after morning meditation, you're given a job to do, and the job only took maybe about, say, 10 or 15 minutes before you went for breakfast. And the job that I had to do was to brush a small courtyard, and the courtyard was maybe about, you know, 12 feet by 12 feet. It wasn't very big, and there wasn't many leaves there, right? But of course, the old sort of, you know, me, the old alky head of Frankie, you know, I wanted to make sure that this courtyard was going to be brushed, you know, by Belfast Frankie to the point that to this day, people would talk about that courtyard. Do you remember? Nobody could brush that courtyard like Belfast, Frankie, right? So I spent some time looking for the best brush to brush the courtyard, in the Zen Centre. Now, what you were to do was whenever the bell sounded, no matter what you were doing, you stopped what you were doing, right? You give one bow, and then off you went, and we had our breakfast, no matter what you were doing. You with me? So what I was brushing the courtyard, and I had all the leaves in a corner, and all I had to do was to be shoveled and put into a wheelbarrow. The bell went. I had my hand on the shaft of the brush, ready just to brush up the last few leaves. And this guy came over, and he just put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, "It's okay to let go." He said, "It's okay to let go," and I burst into tears. I can honestly tell you now that I reckon that I cried for maybe a year, right? So much so that I was frightened of my tears, that, that I could be at a meeting and I was frightened that I would burst into tears at a meeting. But whatever way the body knows, the way people say that the body keeps the score. No, for me, it was as if, my body knew when to cry and when not to cry. But here, what a release and what a relief. I remember going into Dokusan, that's when you go in to see the teacher, and you talk about your practice, and you talk solely about your practice, not about what's on TV or did you hear what he did. It's solely about your practice. And I remember telling him, about, how I just burst into tears. You know what I mean? He came one time to Belfast, and, I'm very close to my teacher and very sort of excited, like a wee boy, whose friend's just arriving back from a holiday. And whenever I got down to the airport, filled with excitement, him and I went for a cup of tea, we sat down, and I just burst into tears. I went on a retreat that week with him, and I just cried all the way through the retreat. You know what I mean? That's what practice is all about. You with me? That's all the stuff that I held, Big boys don't cry. Big boys don't cry. I mean, but the release and relief of those tears, which were at the core of my being. I mean, mindfulness practice, which is a core practice of Zen, is about letting go. And if you can't let go, just let it be. It's as simple as that. No big deal. No big deal. That's the good news. The good news is it's no big deal. Yep. The other good news is, a bit like the Buddha himself, being the first in recovery, he designed a way of getting out of suffering, and that was through the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. Yep. And Bill W. and Bob, of course, designed a way out of suffering through the 12 steps. And I can honestly say with my hand on my heart that to this day, I am still a beginner, an absolute beginner when it comes to the steps and when it comes to my practice. My mother, God rest her, would always say that the longest person around in AA today is the one who got up earliest this morning. Yep, the one who got up earliest this morning. So guys, tonight's all about mindfulness and the 12 steps. And what I'd like to say is, that through mindfulness practice, that's what happens, is we start to open up, we start to let go. This is not a thinking game. You with me? Thoughts are thoughts, they're not the mind. And remember, alkies like me want to live in my head, they don't want to drop into the body. You with me? I prefer to get caught up in the me, rather than the we. So, thoughts are thoughts. They're not the mind. Clouds are clouds, they're not the sky. Go up in a plane. Through the clouds, you got a clear blue sky. And when it comes to mindfulness practice, what happens is we discover that we have two lives. I was told this back about 1998 in San Francisco, and I asked my teacher, when do I get my second life? And he says, you get your second life when you realize you've only one. This is it. This is it. The most important thing is to find out what the most important thing is. And the most important thing is what you're doing right now. What you are doing right now. The Buddha himself says, if you want to know where you're coming from, look at what you're doing now. And if you want to know where you're going to, look at what you're doing now. It's as simple as that. Nothing fancy. Whenever Bill and Bob says, keep it simple, do you know what? They got it right. It's all about keeping it simple. And easy does it. Easy does it. Yeah. So through working with our good friends in Stanford University, they talk about the handy model of the brain. They talk about the lower brain, the upper brain, and they say that if there was a war between the lower brain and the upper brain, the lower brain would win. And what happened is that we flipped the lid. You with me? We flipped the lid. But whenever we practice mindfulness practice, then what happens is these wee guys here, who are known as the amygdala, right? They begin to shrink. This will be the cortex and the prefrontal cortex and the executive function. What happens is, this cortex becomes denser, and we tend then to respond to situations rather than react to situations. Now, that doesn't mean to say that I am going to be stress-free, right? But what it means is you have two guys in a car, we're driving along, someone cuts out in front of us, both of us will flip a lid, this guy will recover faster, whereas this guy will tend to perseverate. You with me? Maybe a few weeks later, asking you, did you hear what happened to us? That guy in the car, I think, was drunk. That guy in the car, I think the car was stolen. That guy in the car, bloody, bloody, blah. Big, big story, big, big drama. On it goes and on it goes and on it goes. Me, 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 me. This guy here has recovered. Yeah. So what happens is we bring the mind home. We bring the mind home. What happens and how does this happen? Within us all, we have a limbic system, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. And then the sympathetic, that releases, of course, the bad stuff, like the adrenaline and the cortisol. That's okay, in small doses, but big doses is detrimental to our well-being. The other pedal is called the parasympathetic, which releases the good stuff, the dopamine, the oxytocin, the serotonin, and the endorphins, right? So if you can imagine that I go out into the street and there's a big wild dog, right? My antennae would go up, yeah, into that fight, flight, freeze, or please, yeah, that fight, flight. So my pedal's down on the adrenaline and the cortisol. I look at the dog. Can I fight the dog? No. Can I run? Yes. So off I go, running, fueled by the adrenaline and by the cortisol, and I outrun the dog. So rather than, taking it easy, right, I've now become addicted to the adrenaline and the cortisol. And what I want to do, I want more of it. And how do I get more of it? I take risks. You with me? I take risks and I create drama, and I want to be a part of that drama. You with me? And if the drama's not there, then I will make the drama appear, right? Because I need this buzz. What mindfulness practice does is brings the mind home, and then we're able to apply the other paddle, which releases the good stuff, the dopamine, the oxytocin, the serotonin, and the endorphins. And then what happens is that antennae comes down from fight, flight, freeze, or please into what's called rest and digest. So it's about being in the gut. Being in the gut. Yep. Yeah. So we bring the mind home, and then we find ourselves in the gut. I'm sorry, Patrick, was there a question coming in there, or am I saying too much? Oh, sorry, Patrick, when you came in there, I thought maybe...
No problem, Frank. I was just putting my camera on again. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. So, yeah. So it's really about being in the gut. And we all know now about the research into the gut. One of the things that I've read about recently is that they're creating what is called, no way we have probiotics and antibiotics and so on. This one's called a psychobiotic, which is about a mood altering, a mood stabilizer. Yeah. So whenever we practice mindfulness practice, then what happens is, right, we bring the antennae down from fight, flight, freeze, or please, right? And then, we're in our gut. And I would say the best description for that would be You know, if you're on an airplane and the cabin crew says, in the event of the plane going down, down comes a mask, and put the mask on yourself before you tend to other passengers. I would say that mindfulness practice is that mask. We need to take care of ourselves, yep, in order to take care of other people. Yep. You know, because sometimes, you know, we can run into the helping profession, and the helping profession on an unhealthy side of things is, you know, I'm trying to help you, but it's me who needs to be fixed, and I'm getting fixed through you. You know, no. That's not on. Yep. You know, we work on ourselves, we heal ourselves in order to heal others. We love ourselves to be able to love others. If I can't love me, I can't love you. You know what I mean? I can maybe have an idea of love, right? You know, but there's always maybe it's not an unconditional love. You mean? You know, it's love with a cost. The daddy of mindfulness practice in the West is a guy called John Kabat-Zinn. If you ask John Kabat-Zinn what is mindfulness practice, he would tell you it's a particular way of paying attention to what's happening right here, right now, in a non-judgmental way. A particular way of paying attention to what's happening right here, right now, in a non-judgmental way. I think that's fantastic. Yeah. After 25 plus years of practice, if you ask me what's mindfulness, I would say Vujade. Vujade. Normally, when I say Vujade, you know, what comes to people's mind is deja vu. Yeah. So that deja vu, that sense that you've been here before. Yeah. Well, turn that on its head. Vujade is we haven't been here before. You okay? This is known as beginner's mind. And in the beginner's mind are many possibilities, and in the expert's mind there are a few. No, that's what I love about practice. It's about begin again, begin again, begin again, begin again. Yeah. The same with the steps. Do the steps and do them again. Do the steps and do them again. You know, that to me is what practice is all about. Begin again, begin again, begin again. So anyway, so now we're talking about, as I said, about, you know, bringing the mind home, right? We become comfortable in our own skin. Yeah. And one of the practices of mindfulness practice, I would look upon mindfulness as being like, you know, like a wheel, right? Where you have a hub and then you have the spokes, right? So we're going to do an exercise shortly, which I would say would be the hub of the wheel. And I'll give you an address where you can download the this short practice, which will only be about 10 or 15 minutes, right? But, you know, that's the hub. But what the hub does, it lets us know, right, if the wheel is buckled. And if the wheel is buckled, we're able to then, through our mindfulness practice, we're able to see which spoke is buckled. And the spokes are like mindfulness of speech. You know, what I say, is it true? Do I have to say it? Do I have to say it now? Is it gossip? You with me? Yeah. You know, then there's mindfulness of thought. Thoughts are not the mind. You know, am I running away with my thoughts and getting caught up in catastrophic thinking? You know, mindfulness of action. You know, so you have like, you know, you've got the spokes of the wheel, but it all comes from practice, practice, practice. Yeah. Attention, attention, attention. Wherever you place your attention is where your energy goes. You know what I mean? So I could be sitting with you guys right here, right now, but my mind could be away into the future, or I could be ruminating about the past. You know, so our practice is about right here, right now. It's the art of falling awake, being aware, being alert, being alive. You with me? Being authentic. Are you living your life? That's it. No, this is it. Are you living your life? Are you waiting for someone to tell you how to live your life? You know what I mean? Yep. Because you know what? Life is the teacher. Life is the teacher. Yep. So for me, when it comes back to the 12 steps, and I'll keep going in between the two, go back to 12 steps, you know, I find, you know, when it comes to 12 steps, it's like you've got to surrender to booze, right? So in 12 steps, you know, I surrender to booze, right? And really, in my Zen world, I surrender to everything. You know what I mean? I surrender to absolutely everything. Absolutely everything. And at the beginning, it sounds a wee bit, far fetched. But the more that you practice, the more that you understand. You with me? Yeah. That's what I love about Zen. Zen's filled with beautiful stories, right? And in the stories, we find nuggets, great nuggets of wisdom. Yeah. And I don't know about you as an addict, but I am really fed by wisdom, you know. And in our practice, it's all about wisdom seeks wisdom. Wisdom seeks wisdom. So back to the here and now. I'm aware of time. So I'd like to do a short exercise. Yep. And this exercise, I'll pass on the link to Patrick, who can then pass it on to everybody. Actually, Patrick, it's mindfulnessbelfast.org. That's it.
Okay, I'll put that in the chat, Frank. Thank you.
So, guys, it's mindfulnessbelfast.org. You go through to the site, there's an audio, go to the audio and download what I'm going to do now, right? Onto your phone or whatever. And please, please, please practice at least once a day. Yep. So I talked about attention. Yep. So I'm going to do 2 short exercises before we do this short body scan. And the first exercise is let's just take 30 seconds, right? And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you just notice how you blink. That's all. Just notice how you blink. Without judging, analyzing. Notice how you blink. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I don't need to know what you noticed, but just to bring to your attention how you were able to notice what you noticed, how you were able to bring your attention to your blinking. So 5 minutes ago, you were not aware of your blinking, and now you're cursing me because you can't stop. You got me? Yep. This next exercise lasts for 1 minute. I recommend you do this exercise at least once a day. What you do is you take the finger of one hand and you trace the fingers in the other hand to the speed of your breath. If you're breathing fast, that's okay. And if you're breathing slow, that's okay. If you believe that you've done this before, that's okay. But this is about doing it now. You with me, right? So it's like, so you breathe in and you breathe out. You breathe in and you breathe out. You breathe in and you breathe out, and so on and so forth. We'll do this for 1 minute. And what I want you to do for this minute is I would like you to count your breaths. So it'll be like, breathe in, breathe out, that's 1. Breathe in, breathe out, that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever the number is. There's no right number and there's no wrong number. But for this exercise, just count your breaths. I'm going to invite you in 1, 2, 3. I'll sound the bell, and then I'll sound the bell again in 1 minute's time. So bear with me. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Count your breaths. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't need to know, but I would say that you probably witnessed that your breath began to slow down without me asking you to slow down your breath. So what's happening now is the breath and the body connects, and in doing so, we start now to bring the mind home. A wee bit like, at Christmas time, you have a snow globe, you shake it, you can't see a thing because of the snow, set it on the table, the snow settles down, and then we're able to see. You okay? Through mindfulness practice, what happens is the neurons, they fire and rewire, and in doing so, we create new pathways. You okay? New pathways. We begin to see. Or in the world of Zen, what happens is, this practice that we're going to do now would be an insight meditation practice. So we gain insight. Insight. If you imagine that I was in a room with you and I had a laser beam and I shone it into one corner, right? And I asked you to follow the laser. Your eyes look at the laser dot, and then I move it over there, and your eyes follow the laser dot. You with me? That's just like your attention. What we're going to do now, I'm going to suggest a pathway, a tour of the body, a body scan. And all you've got to do is bring your attention to that part of the body. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to move anything. You with me? You don't even have to feel anything. All you got to do is notice that part of the body. If I say the left foot, you just bring your attention to the left foot and just notice. That's all. Just notice. Remember, non-judgmental awareness. There's no right way and there's no wrong way. So, to begin with, I invite the bell to sound 3 times. And that's to give you time just to get settled into your seat and to adopt a dignified upright posture. And at the end, I'll invite the bell to sound twice. So all aboard. Here we go. If you can, let your eyes close and notice where your attention is right now. Is there a story, planning, remembering, avoiding, now gently give yourself permission to shift from doing to being, to be present in your body. And as you begin to settle into your body, notice contact with the floor, your left foot on the floor, heel, sole, toes. Now shift your attention like the beam of a torch to your right foot on the floor, heel, sole, toes. Now notice contact with your seat. Notice how your seat supports your body, noticing the points of contact between your body and your seat. Back upright, not too tight, not too loose. Lower your shoulders, head upright, as though you're balancing a book on the crown of your head. As you begin to ease into your body, notice contact with your clothing against your skin. I guide your attention to your breath. Allow your breath to take center stage. Notice how you breathe, the right way, the wrong way. No effort, no adjustment. Your breath is always present. Not a future breath or a past breath. Be present to this breath. I guide your attention to your tongue. Notice the taste buds and allow the tip of your tongue to rest against the roof of your mouth. This relaxes your throat. Gently, without judging, explore your soundscape. Notice any sounds within the room without judging, analyzing, or interpreting. And see if you can expand your field of sound outside of your room. Noticing what's happening now. Sounds appear and drift away. Now, gently, with kindness, bring your attention to your face. Notice the facial muscles, nerve endings around the forehead, temples, your eyes, eyelids, cheeks, nose, nostrils, your mouth, lips, jaw, chin, throat. Now gently guide your attention to the back of your neck, noticing neck muscles, nerve endings. Notice how your neck supports your head. Now bring your attention to your shoulders. Now gently guide your attention like the beam of a torch to your left hand. Notice any contact between your left hand and your body. Now gently shift your attention to your right hand, noticing any contact between your right hand and your body. Now bring your attention to the upper body. Notice any movement in the upper body as you breathe in and as you breathe out. Notice the tummy. Any movement in the tummy as you breathe in and as you breathe out. Notice your chest. Any movement in your chest as you breathe in and as you breathe out. Now gently, with compassion, follow the in-breath as you breathe in and let go of the out-breath as you breathe out. Like a wave rolling onto the shore and returning to the ocean. Be present to the ebb and flow of your breath. When breathing, just breathe. The birds they sang at the break of day. Start again, I heard them say. Don't hold on to yesterday or what has yet to be. Ring the bell that rings. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Good stretch, good yawn. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon.